so just a few housekeeping items. Sometimes Click Meeting does shut down, so if it does and I go away, I'll try and get back on as quickly as it allows me to. But thanks for the few of us that are joining. I'm glad that Diane's working on recording it so that we can send it out to everyone when it's convenient. Hope no one's groaning because it's going to be a quick training session to try and add some fun to fundraising, and just pipe in and ask any questions along the way or type them into the chat box. And we can either answer them right away or we can save them and address them at the end. There might be some questions that I can't address with my knowledge or objectives on the phone, but I'm really good with follow-up, so we can try and get some objectives or talking points for any of them along the way afterwards. So the first slide, Diane's going to be the keeper of the slides today, just says that some first things first, some background knowledge. So just a friendly reminder that it takes fundraising and donor support to execute our mission. So without the generous help from friends and donors, many of Save the River's programs, upgrades, and advocacy work would not be possible. As board members, it's important to remember that we're responsible for not only representing and presenting our organization's image to the community, but we also need to be comfortable soliciting support to achieve Save the River's goals. So the next slide. So FYI, this doesn't just mean asking for money. Oftentimes when we're talking about fundraising, people kind of moan and groan. But being an ambassador and a fundraiser means a few things. Yes, encouraging financial support, but also promoting our mission to increase visibility, participating in events like the River Partner Party, fundraising events, and otherwise. Stewarding donors, so stewarding is just another way of saying thank you, and sharing your personal story of involvement within your networks. So for the purpose of today, I will be talking about the big one, encouraging financial support and soliciting gifts. So the two secrets to fundraising success, I'll give them to you. It's one, leading by example. This is what I tell all of my volunteers. I've worked for the past 2.5 years with strictly volunteers, and it's if you want success in fundraising, you need to step up and lead the pack. It's 100% easier to ask for support when you yourself are already a donor, because that's turning that ask from giving to joining. So each board member will hopefully give a personally generous gift on an annual basis as a sign of commitment, not only to the organization, but also as a sign of respect for other board members and donors who support the organization as well. And then the second thing is engage in peer-to-peer outreach. So making introductions within your network, getting your community of friends and family also involved with your Save the River community. That's going to be another really important aspect. Again, I want to just back it up a little bit though and provide you with a little bit more fundraising 101 because I think it really helps contextualize this whole conversation. So in the US alone, there's approximately 1.4 million nonprofit organizations registered with the IRS. In Canada, just for perspective, there's about 161,000. So from 1999 to 2005, the fundraising sector and nonprofit field grew 66%. So I think it's really kind of important for us to just look at this sector as a whole and see these are the number that we're competing with and how we're going to stand out. So why do people give? There's so many different reasons. This is just a quick little snapshot of a list. Moral obligation, personal satisfaction, removing guilt for not giving, improving social status, response to peer pressure, compassion, empathy, supporting the mission, expressing hope or other feelings, to be remembered, sense of belonging, gain immortality, tax benefits. So you'll notice there how only one of those reasons is tax benefits. That's often one of the first objections that I'll get, especially when we're talking about Save the River on the Canadian side, is, well, there's no tax benefits, so people just aren't going to give. And I think that we just have to look at that as one reason in the whole list of reasons. We can't let that be our only objection. Effective fundraisers seek to discover what is important to any potential donor and tap into that need to encourage and support giving. So that's another thing we really need to keep in mind, and looking at the organization's mission through the eyes of the donor. So oftentimes we hear about the mission and what initiatives and objectives we're doing, but it's really important to, again, think about who we're talking to, so the friends, the community members, and what's going to be the thing that makes Save the River important to them. So key activities in fundraising. Again, we're just getting into the weeds a little bit, but I think these are some things to keep in mind. So the first thing is research, so finding out what stakeholders want and need. So identifying the stakeholders and potential donors, supports planning and evaluation, and then also just ensuring accurate resource allocation once we do get those resources in. Marketing is the other thing, so getting the word out, communicating the organization's purpose and activities, promoting the mission and our case for support, encouraging donations, and communicating our fundraising results. So once we get the funds in, what are we doing with them? Where's the money going? And then relationships. So at the core of successful fundraising, helping to add donors and prospects to the pipeline, developing them into active and regular donors, engaging stakeholders in the organization, as well as supporting effective stewardship of the funds. Again, telling the donors where their money is going to re-engage them that much easier when we go back to them. And then the last thing, really important as well, is ethics and accountability. So we just looked at all those different nonprofits that are across the US. We need to make sure that we're instilling stakeholder trust and confidence, as well as making sure that our assets are managed and accounted for, that all the data that we're using is private and that the donor rights are maintained, as well as that our programs that we're getting the funding for are all executed. So that's what we're just going to take a quick peek at, because I think, again, oftentimes we think fundraising is just asking, but this is one example of a donor cycle. So there's a lot of different ones that you can look at. This is just one I had seen in another PowerPoint presentation, so I kind of stole it and we'll just kind of walk it through really quickly. So again, some fundraisers may use different terminology for each phase, but the overall concept remains the same, that the first thing is research or identification. So we're looking at who's giving and matching their priorities with the organization's needs. The second thing is inquiring, approaching, involving, or qualification. So this includes doing personal calls, initial inquiries, and really determining what the appropriate and effective ways of involving or cultivating that source or prospect or donor or friend or whatever you want to call them. So this could be a dinner out, a visit with the executive director, asking them to be a guest speaker in one of the projects that we're working on. And then the third thing is developing a request or that cultivation. So we're defining what the project or goal or fundraising opportunity is that most effectively aligns with the source's funding objectives, and really communicating our missions and our needs with them. Then the next thing is the big one, that's the solicitation. So we're making that ask. The most effective way to do that is obviously an in-person visit, then it's by telephone, then at an event, and then obviously your kind of mass publications or print media, that kind of a thing. But visit, telephone, those are always going to be my first choices. And then always remember to follow up as well. So you want to make sure that after that ask is made, that everything else is in order so that you're offering more information if that's necessary, that kind of thing. And then the fifth thing is reporting and thanking or stewardship. So reporting to the funder in an honest, thorough, and timely way. Again, is it a card? Is it a phone call? Is it another visit just to let them know? Having a procedure in place is going to make sure that we've set a precedent for consistency and donor appreciation along the way. And then repeat. So never let the process stop. Obviously, you kind of can see the little arrow going back over to the qualification. You really want to plan ahead and look forward to your next steps that involve the donor. So again, they've done their gift. We're not going to solicit them maybe for another year, but what are those ways in between that we can really keep them engaged with Save the River? Again, is it a guest speaker? Is it coming to an event? Is it a private invitation? That kind of thing. So you always want to make sure that your approach is tailored, and don't want to let it go stale, or you're just going to fall into the whole bucket of all the other nonprofits that are approaching these people. So then to get a little bit more specific, back to you or the board, us, why are we including volunteers in fundraising? So here's a few reasons. Staff obviously can't do it all. Peer-to-peer cultivation and solicitation is going to be more effective than when done by staff. I always tell my volunteers that. Maybe I have a great relationship with a donor, but it's obviously going to mean so much more coming from them as a class leader or as a class volunteer. Again, volunteers have a knowledge of connections with prospects and donors that staff may not access. They're going to have a little bit more of a casual conversation than maybe they would with staff. And then volunteers working within an organization, it really shows that there's support for the organization's mission. It's boosting credibility as well as in the community and
All right, everybody. Well, now it's Diane. And so Cicely said this happened. She'll sign right back on. I'm sure I can see her on the attendee list. I'm sure she'll pop right back. Bear with us just a moment.
Sorry, just disconnected. Okay, so above all, the staff-volunteer relationship is a partnership that is all working towards a common vision. So each partner has a specific role in the fundraising process, and both obviously contribute to its overall success. So often it's the interaction between staff and volunteers, with each of them bringing their knowledge and expertise to the table, that makes it possible for us to achieve the organizational goal. Okay, so here we go. Secrets to success. This is the 6 steps for the model solicitation. This is the nitty-gritty and how to get into the actual ask. Oftentimes when I tell people what I do, one of the first things I usually hear is, wow, I could never ask someone for money, really. I kind of think back and say, usually I'm not asking them for money in my own pocket. I'm asking to have a conversation with them about a cause that I really believe in, and offering them the opportunity to make a difference. So whether or not that's at Queen's to change a student's life by offering them financial assistance so that they can make their educational dreams come true, or with Save the River, and it's ensuring a clean river for future generations to come. If I'm speaking to a grandparent with their kids swimming in the river, it's really kind of like finding what it is that's going to tweak that donor or prospect's mind and say, come on board and be a part of this that we're accomplishing here. So tried and true, I've made thousands, literally thousands of asks as a fundraiser, and doing the following will get you success. I can't necessarily promise a yes at the end of it, but it will help you be prepared. So the first thing obviously is building rapport. Take it easy. Reestablish your relationship with chit chat to break the ice. Often open-ended questions are helpful. How's the summer starting off? Are your grandkids going to make it up? Oh, there we go. Okay. Spend a lot more time listening yourself than talking. The second thing is state the case for support. So focus on the organization's strength and how it's serving the overall community. So for Save the River, Lee pointed out those one-pagers that were in the office. Those are great for this kind of thing. Sincerity and enthusiasm really are going to speak volumes when you're sharing the facts in a knowledgeable manner. Then the third thing is encouraging involvement. So we're asking open-ended questions that are going to help the prospect or donor really think about the situation for which the funds are being raised. Oftentimes they may end up stating your case for support in the process. So you really just want to sit back, listen, be prepared to address objections in a positive way. So Lee and Jeff are great with kind of sharing those messaging points with us when there's different situations that are occurring, as well as those news articles. So really find the most positive lights that you can bring up and touch on that. Listen, be understanding if they are sharing feedback. Oh, great, thanks so much for sharing that. Oh, what a different perspective I hadn't considered. And so also, if there is the opportunity, consider asking for the prospect's advice about the organization and its programs as well. Again, you're going to want to put a read on that. If you know they're all going to be negative advice, maybe that's not the right time. But if you do think that they're going to have some genuine appreciation and some feedback that you can share with either Jeff or Lee or anyone else with the board or the staff, then definitely I think that's a great time to do that. Then you're going to want to summarize the benefits and close. So watching for those signs of acceptance of the case, such as body language or tone. Are they nodding? Are they agreeing with the statements that you're saying, or that kind of thing? Are they being positive? Summarize the case and then ask for the contribution. You don't want to get tripped up. You want to make sure that you're asking, not just saying it and letting them, fizzle out. So some kinds of ways that I've usually brought it up are, I'm wondering if you will join me in becoming a Save the River member at such and such a level, or could we count on your support to Save the River this year through an annual donation? Again, those statements that have a question mark at the end of it, those are those statements that you're going to want to use so that they know what you're getting at. And then the fifth thing is be quiet. Just once you've done that closing statement and asked that question, allow silence. I'm often one that gets really kind of, jittery, and I want to be the first one to talk, but it's okay. You really just have to let the prospect and the donor be the first one to speak and hear what they're going to say. And then 6 is respond appropriately. So if the answer is yes, confirm your understanding by repeating what you think they agreed to. And then if it's no, find out what that no means. This is something I joke about all the time, is that there's 100 million different no's, but only one of them is an actual no. And that is, no, never, ever, ever ask me again. I never want to hear from Save the River ever again. The chances of you getting that, probably, they've happened to me like 2 or 3 times. I don't think it's going to happen that often. There's usually going to be a reason behind it. And so what is it? Is it the amount? Is it timing? Is it the contribution itself? Oftentimes it's going to be a maybe. It'll say, we need more time to think about it. So if that is the case, then you want to make sure that you're confirming a time to which you're going to call or visit or touch base again. You never want to just leave a blank pledge card. And I've gotten into these situations before where you're like, all right, great. It really sounds like you're positive about it. I'm going to leave this pledge card here. And then you're never, ever going to get it back ever again. So they're going to say that they're going to do it and, never do. So if it's not the right time, maybe we can follow up directly, or happy to, work with you on my iPhone right now. I've got the web page up. I can help you fill it in some blanks here. That kind of thing. You just want to find that concrete time where you're actually going to do it together and get that pledge card back or that online donation filled out. So the next thing is just a kind of a quote I wanted to share. It's an 8-year-old quote, but it's something that I think still really rings true. And that's that the whole peer-to-peer ask really does work. So I'll give you a minute just to kind of read over that quote. But 43% when asked if they would still make a contribution, if it was someone they knew personally, are going to say yes. And on to our next slide. So you're probably wondering, what if I don't get that yes? That's okay. There's a million, like I said, reasons why someone will say no, and only one of them, the don't ever ask me again, is really the only one that you can use to actually appreciate that no. Hopefully you do get the yes. And if that's the case, you have to say thank you right away and follow up, as I kind of illustrated earlier. Sometimes you'll get a yes and it's going to be smaller than requested. Again, you want to graciously accept, say thank you, and continue to build that relationship. That's going to be really important. Ask if they would be willing to make another stretch gift over the campaign. I like to use the word stretch gift because usually they'll ask, what is a stretch gift? And I'll say, you have to kind of reach out over your potential, really kind of think about your gift and what's going to be a more generous gift over your lifetime that you can really think about. It's a stretch gift for them to consider. Also ask if they'd be willing to pledge to give annually over 5 years. It's awesome that our online giving page has that capability. So that's something too that maybe they're not going to do that whole amount right at one time, and that's a no that you can easily add an objection to and say that, yes, actually we've got the infrastructure set up in place that we can do it over a period of certain number of years to really make it work for you. They could ask for more time, so we talked about that. So again, you want to arrange for a definite time to speak and meet again and ask if there's more information that you can provide. I'm always one that I never like to bring papers and that kind of thing to a meeting because I think it's so much more beneficial if I can send a follow-up email after to say, thank you so much for taking the time today. It was so great to kind of hear about, your life and your career and how you've grown up on the river and what the river means to you. Here's one of the one-pagers that we talked about earlier. I know you'd asked for some quick facts on that program. Here it is. Really looking forward to following up with you next Tuesday at noon. I know that you're stopping by the marina and we can touch base again and really talk about your annual contribution. That's kind of how I foresee it if they're asking for more time. So what happens if they say no? That's fine. Don't be afraid to probe though and ask for a reason. If there is a project, is there a project that's going to be a better fit? Is there an amount or a level that's going to be a better fit? Again, do they require more additional information? Maybe they need someone else on the board, to come in and help you. Maybe they've got a different connection with someone on the board and they want to hear them and offer that that kind of confidence and agreement from one of the other board members. Or maybe it's Lee that you need from an executive director, or Bridget from a staff point of view, that they need to know some of the logistics that you just can't offer. Don't guess. That would be my biggest thing, is don't guess on an answer. Instead, be prepared to follow up and make sure that you're offering those other introductions if need be. So they're quiet. What happens if they're quiet? You really can't get a read on their body language. Just let them think. Let them speak first. Take a drink of water. Don't jump to any conclusions that they're reacting negatively. And then into handling objections. So 2 that I've kind of just brought up to test the waters today are other charities that are higher on the priority list, or they don't seem interested. Again, you can thank them for their feedback and ask if there's a specific area that they're interested in. And it really will give you some time to see if you can align their interest with what the organization's doing in another way. Again, don't be afraid to follow up and take the time to do so. Or maybe they're unhappy with recent developments at Save the River. Again, really listen carefully to what the issue is by asking them to elaborate on their thoughts. Oftentimes they just want to be heard, and thank them for their feedback as well. So, wow, I mean, I can't really address that. I don't know if I'm the right person to, but I really appreciate your feedback and you taking the time to share that with me today. I'm definitely going to take that back to my other directors, and we've got a board meeting coming up in a few weeks, so it's really great to get that perspective from the community. People just want to be heard. And you want to make sure that you're ending that visit off on a good note. So ask if the issues were resolved, if they would reconsider. So if maybe it's something that's a quick, easy fix, and they're saying, oh yeah, I mean, maybe I have my facts wrong, but if you can get me an answer, I'll definitely consider this. So again, do you need to involve someone else to help and progress that relationship along? And then there's the big other. So maybe it's something else going on in a timely way that's affecting negative criticisms within the community. There's always going to be things that come up. And again, I find responding genuinely and thoughtfully works best no matter the situation. Smiling, always ending the conversation on a positive note, that's really all you can do in certain situations. And then, like I said, following up. After the solicitation. So once you've made that ask, you've identified that new contact for you, update Save the River staff and the fundraising committee. You never want to make sure that there's overlap. So maybe you're talking to John Smith, but someone else also has a relationship with John Smith. By updating everyone and keeping everyone in the loop, we'll make sure that John's not asked 20 million times. And then no matter the response, please consider sending a thank you note or an email. I think it's always nice, again, just to end that conversation or that visit on a positive note so that they've always got Save the River in a positive light in their mind. And then keep discussions confidential as well. So making a charitable gift is a personal decision and may involve discussing the donor's financial situation. And you want to make sure that it's essential that we treat that information with respect. So the last slide I've got here is just to touch on stewardship. So thank you. Those two words can really go a long way. And at Save the River, with such it is a smaller donor base, and we've got a river community here, that thanking our donors should be one of the most important parts in the whole cycle of things. So recognizing their support by ensuring they're included in those annual donor reports, contributions, making sure they're receiving any membership benefits associated with their giving level. And again, just making sure that those are going to be the people that we renew next year, and really making sure that, again, Save the Rivers in a positive light, and that they're feeling that warm and fuzzy from that gift that they did. So that's fundraising and stewardship training in a nutshell at 12:26. I think we did pretty good to keep it under 30 minutes. Again, I know I didn't get into a lot of logistics and talking points. I really wanted to get people's feedback. So if you do have any immediate questions, feel free to chime in or put them in the chat box. And then if there's anything else after the presentation, maybe we can compile a little list of objections that you guys have received out in the field, and I can work to put some scripting and other messaging together.
Awesome job, Cicely. Thank you.
Are there any immediate questions right now? I see some people are typing in the chat box. Perfect. Right to the point. Okay. Well, I don't want to keep too many people on their lunch hour, but I really appreciate everyone that did listen in, and hopefully those can listen to the recording afterwards. And then, like I said, if there's any other questions or one-on-one conversations that you want to have afterwards, we can definitely talk a little bit further.
Yep, and it looked like Steve was typing. I don't see anything popping in yet, but so we're going to send this out to everyone. Oh, he said thanks. But so the idea, right, everybody, this is going to prep us for River Partner Party and then for the July party in Canada. So think about your scripts or your objections you might get. And I know Cicely's great at role playing. If you want to walk through those talking points with her, you can always do it with me as well.
Great. Thanks so much for coordinating it, Diane.
Happy Monday, everybody. Have a good day.
Okay. Bye.